Hello, so I'm Pat Ashe, or Patrick Ashe as it says there for some reason. I wrote that anyway. Hey. I'm a curator, I'm a producer of video games. I'm currently studying at Goldsmiths on an MFA in curating, and I've been curating events for about 10 years, starting in theatre nights in the backs of pubs during my undergrad years, to co-running collectives like Wild Rumpus, which is the midway point between a club night and an arcade, and Beat Public, which is a night for performance and video games that happens at Camden People's Theatre. I'm also a producer of video games, as I said. I've worked on games like Hohokum, Loot Rascals, Vignettes, and I used to be a performance artist working at the kind of intersections of play, theatre and interaction. And a lot of my work and a lot of my interests are very cross-disciplinary in nature, and that's why this is a picture of me in a paddling pool outside a warehouse in East London with the other half of Beat Public, wearing PlayStation Move controllers wrapped in condoms tied to our wrists with elastic. And this is kind of what I want to talk about, is cross-disciplinary work, mostly through kind of the lens of Beat Public and the kind of 7 years I've spent working on that. And so as I said, Beat Public is a night, anyway, this is cross-disciplinary work. Beat Public is a night for performance of video games and things that might not be either of those things really. We show a selection of works throughout the evening with an hour of live performance in the middle of the night. The night aims to not be for just one crowd. It's not just for games people or performance people. Tom Martin, the co-runner of the night, often describes it as a night of interesting things for interested people. And we, as a medium, that being video games, often talk about wanting to open up the field to as many people as possible, to stop working across borders and boundaries, to allow creators of all kinds to work in the field. But the way often we go about this seems very greedy and grasping when it comes to how we want to use those working in other fields. And I don't think this goes in just one way. It's not just us. A very well-respected theatre maker, who shall remain nameless, recently spoke about that crazy space between video games and theatre. I reckon that's the next frontier. In the next decade, that'll be the big thing. What happens when you actually have World of Warcraft as a real world? What happens when you have someone leveling up in a theatre production? Now, I personally never want to see anyone leveling up in a theatre production. And so when we talk about what we can learn from other mediums, we diminish their work just as a teaching moment for ourselves in video games. We invite them often to talk at conferences so we can pick the things that work for us from their bones and leave the messy, hard-to-use bit behind. People often proudly talk about their influences outside of games. They boast of how often they went to the Tate Modern during production, or what films they watch, or what contemporary dance they see. They view these other mediums as something to drape over our games or our events to prove how outward-looking we are. It's rarer, I feel, for actual collaboration, for mutual learning. So these are some examples. This is a game by a dancer, which we showed at Beat Public. It's a really amazing game about discussing the future through objects. But yeah, I feel as rare I feel for collaboration, for mutual learning, for building together on the same level. It happens. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but at the moment it feels like the exception, not the norm. I just want to kind of talk about a thing we do at Beat Public, which I feel personally fits this idea of collaboration. And every Beat Public we commission performance makers to make work using a specific game. So this is Foxy and Husk performing actually the V&A using Everything by David O'Reilly. We've had work where Chris Brett Bailey made a piece using Burn Band, the drag artist John Smith used Panoramical, Emma Franklin worked with Tokavet, amongst a myriad of examples. And the reason these commissions work for me, and when they work at their best, is when these artists take the games for what they are. They don't treat them as a holy object to impart knowledge. It's an element to be used in its wholeness, not in a way that's about picking out the essential elements like leveling up and putting those on stage. It's about connecting with and working with the work of a medium in a way that enhances both of them. The same way these artists would work with music or lighting or visuals or movement or anything else. Collaboration isn't me learning from you how to improve my work. It's not about me picking what I deem to be the vital components of your medium to plug into my work. It's about us learning to work together with all the strengths and weaknesses of our mediums combined. Thanks.